orange and blue. And 19th Street runs this way, and of course it can't go through Rittenhouse. Technically 19th Street would be kind of like staggered this way. They call that West Rittenhouse, which goes around the west side or corner of Rittenhouse. Should walk down to, we will stay on the cross. So that's the tip. So 15 to 19, I'm pretty sure it's 15 to 19, if not 14. You know, it's possible, right, it's either 15 or 16 to 19, and 18 is where it's longer on the, right, it does look like a cross when you look at it on the map. So I was going to call this, you know, Sunday Funday, where's my Hyundai? Because someone said that once a long time ago, who worked at Starbucks, and everybody, he posted it like on his Facebook or whatever, and he thought it was, you know, it rhymes, but also I think they shared a car. Like, he might have worked with people and they shared the car, and he's like, where's my car? You know, everybody shared cars. So, and then right there, we pass on the right. He's always out here in the morning. I used to walk a dog many years ago, like over 10 years, you know, we're talking, well, I guess we'll say 7 or 8 years and ago, in one of these buildings here on South Rittenhouse, 1820, 16th floor, we were 2 floors below Ray Perlman, who was worth $18 billion in his holdings, which were kept in Delaware. They moved those holdings over to Singapore. He since passed away. He was like 101, 102. But I used to walk Cody, a Yorkshire Terrier, at like 6 in the morning, and you run into the same people. And there's a guy who still comes out here super early in the morning and hangs out, has coffee or what have you. So locust, of course, locust is biblical, a biblical reference. And how odd would it be if a big city like this, it seems like it has, you would assume it had tons of opportunities. It isn't a little bit of an unusual city, but it might be highly orchestrated, but a city like this would still turn to Bible references, you know. Okay, this person's been posting a lot. I have to read it, I can't stand it. So they used to have tons of signage all over the place, and some of it was very specific to me, as if people heard what I said in private, even on the phone with my mom or dad. I was like, that's weird. To argue with a man who has renounced the use and authority of reason, and whose philosophy consists in holding humanity in contempt, is like administering metis to the dead, and evering something to convert an atheist by scripture. Thomas Paine. So that's a quote from Thomas Paine. We have Thomas Paine Park. There's 2 parks. There's Thomas Paine, and then there's another Paine Park, the skate park, I think. Is that Thomas Paine or not? The other one is. Anyway, so this is locust, and the story of the locust in the Bible is more of a well-known one, even amongst people who aren't religious. Like, somewhere it would come up, although I grew up during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I'm well aware that the same programs on TV, like, we grew up watching, you know, special TV programming for Easter, the Exodus, and just the Easter story, and they would air this like on ABC, and, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Anyway, there would be these shows that were technically biblical in nature. They don't air them on regular large networks any longer. Maybe they would air them on an off channel. So anyway, I'm walking from Locust to Chestnut. Now, we can go back to the Les Miserables, the miserable lesbian idea of someone deciding to be a little bit hokey and to interpret Les Miserables as miserable lesbian, and the idea of like tapping into the neighborhood or finding love somewhere else. There's a huge push, like a major movement with the L word when it first came out, so the early to mid 2000s through, I would say, like 2016. There was a major movement, and during that time period lots of laws and legislation were passed to allow same-sex marriage couples to enjoy the same benefits as heterosexual couples. You know, I mean, the worst case scenario is you're single and you really do miss out on a lot of benefits, not to mention a dual health income or whatever, but and people with families tend to seem more valuable. I believe society treats them as being more valuable than, say, you know, single people. But there are tons of benefits, you know, when you are hitched, and the LGBTIQ community was, you know, part of one of the biggest movements. Interestingly, in 2011, I experienced this thing that kicked off. I wound up in raw vegan foodie green juicer land doing yoga, which could seem like the antithesis, because Nature World came in to make sure I remained healthy, simply because there are many people out there who like to push people towards the medical industry. You know, your parents were type 2 diabetes, adult onset. You know, there are people who are brainwashed, I believe, to believe that certain things are inevitable because of your DNA. But things can be controlled. Your sugar levels can be controlled. I wasn't born with an insulin problem. But there are people who want you to worry about these things constantly, and it's a way to chip at the brain. So if someone's only conversation with you is about death or taxes, then they're a problem, you know. All they do is bring up taxes or medical problems. So, but chestnuts, sorry, to get back to the lesbian reference, you could understand, someone became a chest nut, someone who goes nutty for chests. That's how ignoramus or hokey, whatever you want to call it, that's how distorted or how far people will go to interpret. Now, it does sort of go back to simple brains of people who might have even created maps back in the day, eons ago. So normally we all think of chestnut as being an actual nut in the nut family. Oh, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, you know. But here's the left end, technically, if it were laid down with face up, you know. So, and this would be the tip of the cross. T-Mobile's in the house, Beard, Olive, PNC. These are points of interest for the persecuted one, the chosen one. I know I was it. I know people will kind of minimize it because Sharon kind of seems like a regular person. She's average, I bet, you know, slightly above average just because I have an education, but you know what I mean. I don't seem like spectacular or what have you. Neither did Jesus, did they? But people needed to persecute him in the Bible if you were to study the Bible.